Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the November Inside Story. It's my great pleasure to introduce Stephen Rael-Flores this morning, our Director of Campus Ministry. Stephen, of course, is going to be telling you his inside story, so I want to turn it quickly over to him. But just to say that my experience of Stephen so far is of a young man who has been placed along some pilgrim paths that most of us do not have to walk down until we're much older. And he has navigated those with grace and faith. And so I very much look forward to having him share about his life pilgrimage with you in this inside story. Thank you, Stephen, for being with us this morning.
And thank you, Julie. It's a great pleasure to be here. Growing up with my family, we had a tradition where every Friday night, we would go over to my grandparents' house and we would watch a movie and have pizza for dinner. And this was just something that I just really loved. It was just a way for the family to just connect with each other, and just that quality time is something that I will forever treasure. Well, in some of those movies that we watched everything from the action movies to the comedies to the horror movies and everything in between. But my mom especially loved watching Christian movies. And I remember having a conversation with my mom, though, where I was so frustrated because so many of these movies make it seem like they have the struggles, but as soon as they accept Jesus, everything gets better. And as we all know, that accepting Jesus changes everything. And I wouldn't be here if it wasn't because of that. But at the same time, though, that doesn't mean that the struggles automatically go away. My journey of faith is a story full of setbacks. It's full of progress. It's full of sorrow, joy, and everything in between. I grew up in poverty in Colorado with a single mom raising me and my 3 younger siblings. And she taught us the most important things, what life is truly made of. That life is not measured by the things that you have, but by how much you love. She really instilled in us a love for faith. And so faith had always been a priority in my family. Every single church, every single Sunday, we would go to church, and that faith was just such an important part of who we were. In addition to going to church, we would go to catechism classes, and then as I grew older, I would get involved in the church, and that just brought me just great joy. I went from helping my grandma teach kindergarten, Sunday school, to eventually teaching my own classes, and then getting involved in the Mass as a lector, as a cantor, as a Eucharistic minister, all while in high school. Well, all this was going on, though, I had no idea what to do with my life. Even though I did really well in school and had above a 4.5 GPA, I really didn't think college was an option for me. Looking back, I can really see how God acted in a particular way by providing me a teacher who would serve as a mentor and guide for me, who really showed me that if I wanted to change my family's circumstances, I needed to go to college. But I had no idea what to do or how to even approach that. And she was able to do some digging, and she found out that the school district offered a program where you could take classes at the community college and the school district would pay for it. And so I jumped at this opportunity, and I just took as many classes as I possibly could. So by the time I graduated high school, I had enough credits equal to an associate's degree. And then, through what I can only describe as divine providence, I was able to get a scholarship that made my dream of attending college come true. But college was the first time that I was away from home, and I was in a completely different environment where I didn't know anyone, and I felt like I didn't belong. This was my first time traveling on a plane. I went to Indiana, just thousands of miles away from home. And even though I was majoring in psychology and theology, this was the first time in my life where I began asking the big questions about life. And I really began to question my faith. I started to explore not only other Christian denominations, but other religions and even atheism as a whole. And during this time, I just became so frustrated because each of these religions had aspects that on some level seemed so appealing. But when I kept digging and learning more, there was always something that just didn't make sense or just match just who I am and what I've been through in my life. And so I kind of looking back, I can really see during this time, my anxiety and depression really start to kind of manifest in college. It was a time when I really struggled to just even get out of bed. And I was just so miserable. There was a point where I just even questioned just whether life was even worth living and just what my purpose was on this earth. All the while, I continued to be involved in church, but it just felt like I was just going through the motions. I went to Mass out of a sense of obligation. It was just something that I've always done and just something that I felt like I really had to do. I can say that I knew a lot of things about God, but I realized that I really just didn't have a relationship with Him. And I tried to find that fulfillment, that just longing in my heart in so many other places that only left me just more hurting and broken than I ever was before. But all of this changed when I went to a campus ministry retreat. I had no desire to go on this retreat whatsoever. It happened at the busiest part of the semester, right before midterms. And so I had all these classes, I had so much work to do, it was like, I don't have time, I don't want to go. But a friend insisted, she just kept pestering me, and finally I relented, and it was the best decision I ever made. While at this retreat, I went to adoration, and as I was kneeling down, I had the most powerful experience of my life. And it's hard to speak and put it into words just what I went through, but I just knew without a doubt that two things. The first was that God was real. For someone who really started to doubt the existence of God, this was huge. But even more than that, the second thing was that I learned is that He loved me, truly, deeply loved me, just as I was, in spite of all my doubt, in spite of all my brokenness and failures. And this just changed everything for me. From that moment, I began to take my faith seriously. I did my undergraduate thesis on the universal call to holiness. And so, in a nutshell, this idea is that our mission in life is to become saints, to get to heaven. And we do that by imitating Christ. And so I have one of my favorite quotes is from St. John Paul II. And he writes, "We are not the sum of our weaknesses and failures. We are the sum of the Father's love for us and our real capacity to become the image of His Son." End quote. This is something I am working towards. I became the first person in my family to have gone to college. And it took a lot of time and trial and error for me to learn to recognize God's voice in my life and to be able to have the courage to say yes, even when I did not know what the next step would bring. Eventually, I discerned that God was calling me to go to grad school and to pursue a degree in theology. But it was a big, leap of faith there, where it was at one point I worked as an academic advisor. So I was always walking with students on their journey and talk with them about kind of what their job prospects would look like. So having a degree in theology, that scared me. I was because in my mind, that really limited what I could do. But still, that call was insistent that I needed to get this degree and then I would figure the rest out. And so I took that step of faith. And while I was there, for one of my classes, I read a book called Forming Intentional Disciples by Sherry Waddell. And this book just changed so much for me. At first, I was so frustrated in reading this book because it opens with some alarming statistics of just how many adults leave the faith, especially during their time in college. And then I really felt a call deep within my soul then, just saying that, hey, I could do something about this. I could help reverse this trend. And so after a lot of searching and trying to figure out what that would look like, I became the director of campus ministry for UW Stout. While there, I was able to make a real difference in their campus ministry. In church terms, Pope Francis really has this idea of going from maintenance to mission, of just kind of going beyond just doing the kind of small everyday things to having a purpose behind everything we do, of inviting students into that deeper relationship with Christ and his church. While there, I created a paradigm that I called pray, play, learn, belong, serve. For me, those aspects really just illuminated just important things of what faith should look like, of having a faith that goes beyond what happens inside the church to really seeing God working through everyday life. I remained in that role for 3 years until one day I received a phone call saying that my mom was rushed to the ER and that I needed to head back to Colorado as soon as I possibly could. A couple days after I arrived, the doctors gave the news that my mom had been diagnosed with GBM, which is stage 4 brain cancer. And this cancer is so fast-acting and so powerful that most people who have it only have a few months to live. This news was devastating. My mom was not even 50 yet. When I received that news, my heart just broke because I just thought of all the things that I wouldn't get to experience with my mom, of her really getting to see me get married or to see my sister graduate from high school. And that was so difficult for me. But we just kind of promised as a family, though, that with it, whatever time we had, we were going to make the most of it. I quit my job and I moved back to Colorado and became my mom's full-time caretaker. While the days were long, I will forever treasure being able to just spend that time with my mom and take care of her, who had worked so tirelessly to take care of me for my entire life. This diagnosis was hard on all of my family, but we truly tried to make the most of the time we had. Unfortunately, my brother turned to alcohol to try and drown the pain. I didn't know things were as bad as they were until the day I received another phone call that would just forever change my life. A nurse said that my brother was dying and that I needed to get to the hospital to say goodbye. And this just seemingly came out of nowhere. While my brother wasn't feeling well the day before and he went to the hospital, we all thought it was just something relatively small and they would just let him go home the next day. Well, it turns out that overnight, as he was walking back from using the bathroom, he suffered a seizure from alcohol withdrawals, and instead of vomiting it out, it went inside, and he experienced cardiac arrest. He died for 7 minutes while the nurses did CPR and brought him back to life. My family was able to quickly say our goodbyes, but he died shortly thereafter. So, it was so hard kind of with this idea of preparing to lose my mom, but to lose my brother just so suddenly, it cut me so deep. November 3rd, so really just not that long ago, has marked a year since I've lost my brother. But in so many ways, my brother taught me the importance of making the most of every single day. He was the person who had this ability to make other people just smile and feel better. He knew how much I doubted myself and would always tell me in response, "You got this." And so, in my office, I have a sign that says, "Don't lose faith, you got this." And so, this not only serves as inspiration for my college students, but every time I look at that sign and walk into my office, I'm reminded of my brother's presence. My brother's passing was so hard on everyone, but especially my mom. But her faith never wavered. Every single day, she embodied giving with everything she had. Even when cancer ravaged her body, her spirit was not broken. She had placed her trust in God and spoke about how Jesus held her hand every single day. For me, this really gave a new appreciation and understanding of God as Emmanuel, of God walking with us. In the midst of all the hurt, she continued to smile and comfort those around her. She did not let herself get discouraged, but she continued to face the world with a smile on her face and love in her heart. She displayed this just unconditional love to everyone she met. And she continued to reassure me and my siblings that no matter what mistakes we made, we were loved, and she was proud of us. She lived a life of joy that everyone she met just immediately felt changed. Really, she had a passion for helping children in schools who had behavior problems that the teachers just didn't know what to do with. My mom for years just loved volunteering in the schools and just getting to know these students and walking with them and just showing them love, and the students just responded in turn. The teachers would just be so amazed of how these kids that they were previously thought of as troublemakers would suddenly listen to my mom and behave, and they're like, what's the magic bullet? How could you make this happen? And she was able to do that just by just showing them love. And that was just such a powerful thing. And that love that my mom showed for me has really helped me to understand God as love in just such a clear way, and the challenge for me to continue to show that love to everyone. I am thankful that I was able to have nearly a year and a half with my mom, which is so much longer than any of the doctors ever thought was possible. She died on March 16th of this year, and then just 10 days later, my grandfather also passed away after struggles with his heart and dementia. We called him Pompo, and my Pompo instilled upon me a love of Disney and musicals. And he was the best cook in the world. Everyone sought him out, especially for his chocolate cake. But really, it was through that. He showed me that through just the ordinary, everyday things like cooking can just be just ways to show people just how much you love and care about them. But after all of these devastating losses, I was just in a state of pure distress and doubt. I felt like I was having a midlife crisis when I wasn't even 30 yet. I really questioned just why my family had to go through so much suffering and sorrow, and I was trying to reconcile all of that with this idea of God as love. And so it just became clear to me that I really needed some time away. And so I took a month-long pilgrimage to Europe, and during that time I traveled to Poland, Portugal, Spain, and the UK. And on that pilgrimage, I was able to kind of have that alone time and grieve, and that was helpful. But actually, it was two kind of key moments in that pilgrimage that really kind of helped restore my soul and spirit. I have a particular love for the devotion for divine mercy. And so when I was in Poland, I was able to see the tomb of Saint Faustina and the Divine Mercy image. And so to just see those words at the bottom that says, Jesus, I trust in you. That was the first time where I really had to kind of internalize that and be able to say, God, I don't really know what's happening. This isn't what I ever thought things would look like. But I do trust, or at least I want to trust. Jesus, help me trust. That was basically my prayer. And then when I went to Fatima, that was just a dream come true. And it was there that I really asked for healing, not only for my heart and spirit, but bodily as well. So in addition to all of the grief things that was going on, in January of 2022, I was at Mass when suddenly I was struck with just immense pain. It just felt like someone had a knife and was just stabbing my back over and over again. And unfortunately, this pain has only increased over time. And still, basically 2 years later, doctors are still trying to figure out what's going on. So far, they've diagnosed me with bulging discs, degenerating discs, spinal stenosis, and scoliosis. But it what in church terms, it's like when you have nothing left, when you're kind of at the bottom, it's what's called kind of the dark night of the soul. And so I came across this quote from Blessed Chiara Badana, and it just resonated so clearly within me. It goes, "I have nothing left, but I still have my heart, and with that, I can always love." With this goal in mind, I moved to Stevens Point in July and became the director of campus ministry. While there's still so much to do, I believe that I've made great progress in my short time here. Yet, there's still a lot that I'm working through. So many times, I catch myself wanting to pick up the phone and just call my mom. And in addition to my grief and physical pain, the voices still lurk in the back of my mind that whisper that I will never be good enough, that I will never be happy, that I don't deserve happiness, and that I just deserve to be alone. And so while I still have these periods of desolation where it feels like God is far away or doesn't care, I know that these don't reflect the truth. I am now experiencing the freedom that comes with knowing my identity as a child of God and the freedom to just be me. I no longer want to run away from who I am or the mistakes that I've made along the way. I am not disordered or broken. I am learning to love myself just as I am. And I'm still doing the best I can to support my family back in Colorado. While finances are still difficult, I am thankful that I have paved the way for my siblings. In fact, both of my siblings desire to work in the medical field and give back to the community. My life looks nothing like I'd ever planned it to be. While there are times where I feel like giving up, I remember that I am here for a reason. Even when it looks like things have fallen apart, God is still present and working in my life and in the world. Life is a pilgrimage, and every day is a chance to try and be a better person than you were the day before. Every day is a chance to grow in holiness and love. With the grace of God, I hope to become the person He created me to be, and I look forward to that joyous day when I will be reunited with my family in heaven. In the meantime, there is work to be done. I still don't understand all of the suffering my family has endured, but I know that I can use my experiences to help those who are hurting. I know I am here for a reason. My faith journey has been a roller coaster ride, one full of doubt, grief, and heartbreak, but at the same time, love, joy, and hope. I am thankful that I've been able to see God's presence in my life through everything I've been through. And I'm just so thankful to be part of a faith community that just welcomes me with just open arms. I just feel honored to be here and to work with college students and help them grow into the people God has called them to be. And just thank you for letting me share my story with you. I will close with the words I wish I would have heard in church. Your life has meaning and purpose. You matter and are good enough. You belong. You are loved and you are worth loving. God never gives up on you. Give God permission to see you, know you, and love you. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. I'm sure some of you may have some questions for Stephen. Yes.
When were you born and where did you live during your childhood?
Okay, so I was born in Pueblo, Colorado, and I was just kind of born and raised there. It really wasn't until I left for college that I left Colorado behind for the first time. Since then, I've made kind of several other states home, but always kind of find myself returning back to Colorado because that's where all my family is. I always say it was small by Colorado standards, but this town has 100,000 people in it. But yeah, it's a great place, but still lots of struggles, but it's starting to get better.
With the college students?
Absolutely. So with the college students here, it's a very different dynamic than working at Stout. So I'm trying to kind of keep that in mind here. But here, there's so many wonderful things happening where I am trying to really show how campus ministry is in trying to get college students to embrace accepting the faith in all of its aspects of being a Christian beyond just going to Mass or going to adoration, of if you're Christian, doing something with that faith. And so I'm really trying to kind of build upon those ideas and have students kind of go out and share that love. And so we're trying to have at least kind of one service project each month to do that. We're trying to continue to have kind of fun social events and bring more students in. With the Focus Missionaries, we have more students than ever before. And so I'm trying to make sure that when we bring them in, there's something worth bringing them into and trying to bring them into that deeper relationship with Christ. And from what I've kind of seen, though, is that for so many students, it's like their experience was kind of going to the student masses, and that was kind of like the extent of it. My vision is to really help the students become integrated with the parish as a whole, because this parish is so wonderful and provides so many opportunities for the students, especially through cooking, through the student suppers, that I really want the students to be able to give back to the parish, not only just through kind of leaf raking, but just through students being able to serve at the other masses and just kind of seeing that greater mix there.
They say that all roads lead to Rome, but your pilgrimage to Europe, you seem to have chosen Poland, Portugal, and the UK, right?
Yes.
What was the purpose for the choice to the UK?
So for that one, so for me, it was very kind of theology focused for the first couple countries. Going to the UK it's kind of realizing then that I needed some time to actually relax and kind of enjoy myself. So going back to kind of how my grandpa instilled in me this love for musicals, that was my opportunity. I was in a hotel very close there to the West End, and so I was able to see at least 6 different shows in the couple days I was there, so at least 2 shows every single day. So I saw Phantom of the Opera, Les Mis, Mamma Mia, and it was just a great, wonderful experience in a whole new way of these shows that just have these wonderful stories and just music that just stirs the soul and just kind of gives you kind of a greater appreciation for life.
But you did make it to Rome.
I did make it to Rome. So it's been, I would say, at least 7 years ago now, but I was in Rome for the canonization of Mother Teresa. So it was just a life-changing experience for me. I have always wanted to travel, but I just never thought it was going to be a possibility due to the finances. But in my mind, it's like, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Mother Teresa was one of my favorite saints because she really just embraced love in just this radical way. And so, yeah, I just bought the ticket and had no idea what I was doing. Went by myself. Wonderful adventure, highs and lows. I did manage to get locked in bathroom a couple times. I did manage to get lost in Rome for a good 12 hours. But other than that, it was just a wonderful experience. And then I'll just never forget that for the canonization, after the Mass was over, that the Pope got in his Pope-mobile and he was driving by, and just at that moment, just tears were just running down my face, and just be like this close to the Pope. Oh, it was just such a wonderful experience. And then the other, just speaking of pilgrimage, experience that I went on as well, is I made a pilgrimage to the Holy Land a couple years ago, kind of in the middle of all this happening with my mom and my grandpa. And that was really so powerful to walk in the steps of Jesus. In really kind of kneeling down and touching the star where they show where Jesus was born, and then actually going to the church and the Church of the Holy Sepulchre where Jesus's body was. It just was the most powerful experience. And for that is what really kind of reaffirmed in me that idea of God with us, of still seeing God present through my entire life and trying to show other people to be able to listen to that voice and seeing how God is present in everyone else's life too. But sometimes it's so hard to listen to that voice when we have just so much busyness or loudness going on.
Any other questions or comments for Stephen? Well, let's thank Stephen again for choosing Holy Spirit Parish and speaking with us today.
Thank you all. It's a joy to be here and just be part of this church community and family, and know that you are all in my prayers and heart forever.